In April, we finished the oak stem, and we started planking the hull with western red cedar by mid-April. However, it feels like we've been planking for ages, but it's really not that long, considering the major job this is. Since it's our first time we're planking a hull, we've been trying out different methods to find the most efficient way to make the strips and the planking. There will be more than 3 kilometers of cedar on the hull once it's done, and the planking gets more and more complicated the higher up we get. We took a break in the planking to build a pad outside the barn where the bolt will come out. We also made a new opening in the barn. And built an extension. We have been busy, to say the least. And there is much left before we are ready to turn the hull around this fall. But we do make time in the weekends to hang out with friends and family. Recently we rented rail bikes and went on an excursion with my family. This is not far from the farm, and it is so much fun to ride these bikes. The rail bike was invented in the 1840s and was used by the track walkers on their daily inspection tours along the railways. The rail bike was also used when repairs and maintenance work was done on the railway. Nowadays, most of the rail bikes are gone, and the ones we used are a copy of the rail bikes that were used during 1920 to the 1950s. This railway was opened in 1902 and was in use until 1972. The ride is 7 kilometers long one way and ends close to the Gyllebo Lake. Going through nature like this was so special. After the rail bikes, we were going on a tour with this old train. The train is 50 meters long, and the oldest wagon is from 1898, and the newest one is from 1942. The train has both a diesel and a steam locomotive, and this day they used the diesel one. The ride takes about 30 minutes one way and goes between St. Olof and Brösarp. When the steam locomotive runs, it uses 600 kilos of charcoal and 3 cubic meters of water on a round trip between Brösarp and St. Olof. We had such a fun day. Now it was time to start planking again.
So today will be a full-on planking day. I have 12 strips now, ready to go onto the hull. I actually did one yesterday evening, and it turns out that I thought we were past the hardest part on this side of the hull, but that one was very hard to get in place in the stern because of the twist of the hull. But I managed, but it took a bit longer than I thought, so I was a bit worried about the epoxy curing up here in the front before I had the whole strip in place. But I managed, so it was okay. And as you can see, there's still no scaffolding in place. I have been giving it some thought, and I have decided to do a few more before I build the scaffolding. And I have also been thinking a lot about the scaffolding. There's lots of things that we need to take into account before we start building it. We don't want to spend too much money on it because it's a temporary thing. And also we don't want to spend too much time building it. But still it needs to be sturdy enough for us to working on it safely. So some of those parameters are a bit conflicting. But I think I have a good plan now, but I will wait until we have a few more strips on the hull. And I'm hoping I can build the whole scaffolding for less than $500, or at least that's the plan, and not spending too much time on it. Yeah, there was a lot of work with this piece as well. It's not fully in place yet, but the hardest part back here is done. It takes a lot of clamps, and yeah, there's still quite a lot of twist at this part of the hull. There's about 90-degree twist in the strip over roughly 4 meters of length. But at least it's possible.
It takes a really long time to fixate the strips now in the stern of the hull, due to the rotation. Vera did her daily climbing session inside the hull. We got some much needed rain after weeks of drought. We haven't managed to plant much for the summer. We have a few pots with flowers, and then some old ones that were already on the farm. I guess the kitchen garden have to wait until next year. It is so much easier to move the strips to the other side of the hull now.
So we have finally reached the waterline level in the midsection here on this side. And we're also past most of that radius in the stern of the boat, which means that in theory, from here on, it should become easier mounting the strips. But it could be that once we get up to that pretty tight radius in the bow, that it will start to become more complicated again. But as always, that's a problem for later. For now, I will start working on the other side and try to catch up, so we're at an even pace on both sides. Yeah, yesterday was a pretty long evening. I worked until almost 2 o'clock at night, trying to reach the same level, and I have. So we're back at the same amount of planks on both sides of the hull now, which feels great. And as I told you guys yesterday, we have now reached the waterline level midships, but up here in the bow, we still have some way to go. Waterline up here is up here, so still some planks before we are at that level up here. And that's because we started planking the hull along the shear line of the boat, and the bow section is much higher than the stern of the boat. Yeah, it's starting to getting really exciting now, because now for every piece you put on the hull, you get a different perspective on the hull. You can really see the hull form taking shape. And from here on, it's going to be more complicated. We're pretty far up now, so I need to have something to stand on. And also the curves on the hull are getting more complicated, so it will be harder to get these strips to conform to the shape. But I'm thinking it should be possible, and if not, maybe we need to split some of these strips down the middle to make it easier to fit them. But so far it's been okay. It's also really time to start thinking about the scaffolding. Yesterday when I worked here, I thought that maybe we should just put some planks inside the hull that we can stand on to do the last of the planking. That will be a really fast and cost-effective way to do it. The only problem with that is that we can't use it, that sort of scaffolding, from when it's time to put the fiberglass on the hull. For that we will really need something on the outside here. Another thing that is coming up is our open house here at the farm at the end of July for our patrons. So if you want to come here to the farm, have a look at the boat build and meet us, please join our Patreon crew, and we have all the details for that meetup over there. Now it's back to gluing up some more full-length strips so we can continue with the planking of the hull.